Hey everyone, and welcome to the AI Academics Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Lennart Nacke, and this is the show where my co-host Vugar and I geek out about the latest AI developments without getting too scientific. We want to be your spot for AI insights that actually matter to your daily life as an academic. So grab a coffee, tune in, and let's chat about why AI isn't the job-stealing monster that everyone thinks it is.
Yeah.
I think we're live now. Perfect. Welcome, Vugar. Welcome back. Excited for you to be here and excited for us to try this out in a different venue. Some of you might have been seen us chat about for how long have we been doing this? Almost a year now. No, it's like a
I
while.
think it's definitely
Half a
more
year.
than 6 months. Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely been quite a while that we just chatted about AI developments and things that are happening there. And we're excited to be doing this on YouTube, on LinkedIn, and on X at the same time. Does it work out? We don't know. We're going to figure this out today and
Yes.
kind of
Yes,
see
exactly.
if it's any good. But yeah, so Vugar and I have been teaching a webinar on using AI research tools for academics. But before we did that, we also spent a lot of time just chatting about the most recent developments, and we're excited to just get everyone's thoughts on this and hopefully provide some insights on what's happening in that space. And I think this week, Vugar, one of the things we want to talk about is, of course, the big announcement that came from Apple on Monday about Apple Intelligence. So here we are in this brave new AI world. And one of the things that Apple loves to do is rebrand things. Remember when they rebranded VR as spatial computing, which I
Yes.
think almost a year ago? And now they're doing it for AI, which is usually artificial intelligence, but now it could also be Apple Intelligence according to what they're doing there. I'm quite excited to see that. And yes, hey everyone that has joined us. I just see some messages coming in here. Vugar, you have the message tab as
Yeah.
well. We'll be monitoring that as well. I don't know what if we click overlay? Does it? Oh, it would just
Overlay, yeah,
comments. Love it.
shows the, yeah.
Cool. All this new tech, this fancy new tech that we're trying out. Okay. Anyways, yeah. So, what are we thinking about Apple Intelligence? I think, yeah, Vugar, any just off the cuff thoughts here that you have after listening and watching that announcement on Monday?
Yeah, first of all, thank you. It was your idea to do this live session together, but I really enjoy talking to you. Personally, I learned a lot from you. And I think you are one of the definitely among my top persons that I met online because in real life we haven't met yet.
True. That's
But
true. Yeah.
thank you, thank you. It was your idea. I'm really happy that I really like to talk about this development, what is happening with AI. And we are, as you said, in our spaces, we covered a lot of stuff in our spaces. So we were just talking about the stuff that we like and people asking us questions. We were answering them. We will continue to do so as long as our scheduling allow us to do. So we are here. It is for the first time we are live on multiple platforms. So if we do anything wrong, please apologize all our audiences from different platforms, but we will try to develop, we will try to improve our skills as well and to do our best and to deliver the best results in our these sessions. We will try to do this as much and as soon as possible. So the development, yeah, I think we haven't done our spaces in May because you were
Yeah.
extremely busy with your
Conference.
conferences,
Yeah.
yeah. And yeah, I was following, although I was also, that was a very intense period for me as well. So maybe people know me. So you are professor teaching in Canada. I am a PhD student studying in Germany. So we are connecting together and we are trying to deliver some good stuff for our audiences. So a lot of things happens. Of course, the top topic is now this Apple Intelligence, although this name is a bit also maybe does not reflect what is happening because Apple really likes to rebrand things, to rename things. So what intelligence they are using, that's basically ChatGPT because they are now cooperating with the OpenAI. And that, so even in last months when OpenAI for the first time delivered this macOS app, and that was a clear sign that they have a now good partnership because OpenAI only rolled out this app for macOS users, although they say that later this year they will also release the Windows version of the ChatGPT macOS app. Now it is only available available. By the way, I tested it today. It's very simple. It's basically what you can do on ChatGPT's website. You can do the same things with the ChatGPT macOS app, but the options are a bit limited there. I think you can do more on ChatGPT website, but I think they will add those features to ChatGPT macOS app as well. So that at least that's the claim they have on their website. So coming to the Apple, so Apple released this Apple Intelligence. Actually, not a release, I would say. That's so they announced their cooperation with OpenAI. Now they are later this year, starting from the autumn. So they will integrate many AI features as well as this ChatGPT function to the different apps on different platforms of Apple, like macOS, watchOS, so Mac OS, so anything that any platform, any system Apple has, so they will integrate all this there. So I noted some of the, so basically that's my idea. So they didn't, maybe they didn't have enough time to generate, because I was following the news from last year that they were investing a lot to generate, to train their own intelligence, to AI. But in the end, maybe they thought that it would be better to include the most developed LLM, the ChatGPT, directly. But they took some steps in terms of security and privacy. So what will happen in our, Apple platforms, they say
Yeah.
everything will happen locally, but if you allow some stuff happen on ChatGPT, then you can use the ChatGPT power. So that's a bit, I quite, I'm not sure I understand it 100%. At least this is what I understand from their the day. I think the event was the day before yesterday, so 10th of June. So at least that was my understanding. But I noticed some stuff which I think, so maybe before diving into the features, maybe you want to add something to this. So I see a lot of people joining us from different platforms. Welcome to everyone. Feel free to ask us any questions, and if you want, we talk about it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the interesting thing that we have to keep in mind here is everything in that announcement, I think, was around privacy and how everything is kept secure. And that was, of course, then, if you've been looking at it on X or some of the LinkedIn posts that I've seen, we're also trying to really look into what does that mean in terms of privacy. Because as soon as you send a data transmission off of your phone, off of your device, to a data center somewhere, you can never 100% guarantee privacy. And I've seen some posts where people have tried to break that down with this private cloud compute thing that they're trying to do there now, where they're trying their best to keep things private. But there are, of course, inherent limitations just by sharing the data off the device into something. And of course, as everyone's saying, the idea is that they want to do the best that they can to try and keep things secure, but there is no 100% guarantee for that security. And I think what I've read, anyways, in some of the threads and posts online that people have said is they're pretty much doing the best that they can currently in terms of ensuring as much privacy as it can. But of course, as soon as it leaves the device, there is a possibility for vulnerability. And why is that so important? Because everything about that new Apple Intelligence, about the new personal AI, I think they called it, or personal intelligence, or something like that, right? The idea is that it's highly personalized, which means highly personalized data that they'll be working with, highly contextual data, which is the benefits and drawbacks are clear. The benefit is, of course, you get the help that you want in the moment that you want it, and that's quite powerful. But the drawback is obviously if somebody manages to intercept that communication and they get a hold of some of your very private information, there is a potential for a vulnerability, right? Like, and potential for intrusion. And of course, that'd be the worst that can happen. They'll try their best to prevent that. But I think that's where some of the concerns come from. And yeah, we've had some questions in here. Now, this one was, I'm now independently developing a thesis on the topic of designing a brand new AI augmented natural language supporting programming language with the features of XML, like constructive tagging, markup, syntax, which is
That's cool.
great. Thanks for sharing that. But yeah, I think one of the things that we see from people are that they feel forced to work with AI. Another comment that came in here was, I feel that I'm forced to participate in the current AI momentum. And I think that's how a lot of academics feel as well. They're thinking, okay, I need to somehow not be left behind. I need to be a part of that discussion. But at the end of the day, a lot of it has to be about choice too, right? And I think that's where some of the struggles with that announcement are, and with the updates of a new operating system that's coming out. Usually you don't get to opt out. Usually if you get an update of an OS, you're opting in, you're working with it somehow, you're making that interesting for yourself. But I think that's where some of the criticisms come in, from the people that are afraid, from the people that are not 100% sure. The big thing is trust, right? Nobody should 100% trust a company, whether it's Apple or not, and whether you're a fanboy or not. There should always be some concern about what's happening if it's not just with you, but with other people. And I get where they're coming from. And then I also get the concerns that many people are voicing about, what if you can't opt out of that update? And then you're automatically forced to be working with that. I think the big thing on Twitter/X was Elon tweeting, because he's
Yeah, I
obviously
saw
not
it.
he's not so happy about OpenAI. As we know, we've discussed this before about his whole like being a little bit sour about not getting his fingers into OpenAI the way he wanted to from the beginning, of this whole exchange between him and Sam Altman. But obviously, one of the things that he's interested or not interested in is collaborating with OpenAI now, and pretty much saying he's going to ban Apple devices if ChatGPT is being integrated with OpenAI as a platform native option, I think he called it, or something like that.
Mm.
For most of us, it's great to have the benefit of choosing your model and saying, I want to send this. But my experience with using a lot of these tools is that there is a lack of transparency often, right? There is not necessarily the education that you want a company to give you as soon as you hit that button. And I think we're all burned from the early Facebook days, where we're just like, oh yeah, it's cool, we're sharing with friends. And then all of a sudden,
Yeah.
no, you're feeding everything to Meta. And Google was the same, we're just searching for stuff. Oh no, you've actually been tracking all of our emails, all of our searches over all the years. Every time people are not 100% alerted about what's happening with the stuff they input on the internet, you
Mhm.
end up with situations like that where, yeah, the public perception and response might not be as good as you'd want it to be. So I think that's the big thing that they're trying to overcome. They're trying to portray themselves as a very trustworthy company. Of course, Apple has always emphasized privacy, but of course, the privacy advocates have always said you could probably also do a little bit of a better job with some of these aspects. It's tricky. It's a tricky situation. I think it was, of course, finally time, because Apple has been coy about joining the AI race, that the other companies have been just jumping right into it. And with Windows or Microsoft pushing it so much, and Google having actually a really iterative and nice approach with Gemini, because it's really getting better, and it's really getting to one of the top models out there. Yeah, it's interesting to see what's happening there. And if you're watching this, you want to drop a comment and maybe share some of your fears or concerns, please do. We'll pop it up on screen here. But we, of course, love to hear what people are thinking about this stuff as well. But to me, that's where we're headed. We're headed from a generalized model, which is what it's been in the past, where those of us that use it professionally have to provide a lot of context in our prompts to make sure that it really gets the output that we want it to produce, towards a model that doesn't need that anymore, because it already sits in the context of your files and your natural workspace. Which, to be fair, Google's already doing that, right? If you're working with advanced Gemini and you've tied it to your Google Workspace, I think now you don't need to be a member of Google Workspace anymore. It's actually automatically tied to your drive and whatnot. I got to double check that. But last time I could just browse files from my drive and I could just add them, and it would have no issues accessing them and reading the PDFs and summarizing them and stuff like that, which is super useful. Vugar and I have talked about this too. Vugar, are you still a big fan
Yeah.
of the Acrobat AI assistant?
Actually, it is getting better. I will come to
Mm.
that, but before, I think what Apple did, because as you aware of, Samsung so introduced its new phone. I think it's a couple of months ago, and a lot of people was so fascinated about it, because so AI is everywhere on Samsung phones, and maybe Apple wanted to catch up with these developments, and instead of
Mhm.
training its own AI, because Google has this power and the biggest infrastructure, I would say, the globally, the biggest data in its hands. So for Google, it was not a big deal to train a specific AI. So now it is, so previously Bart, now Gemini, and to integrate it to every aspect of the Samsung phones. But so maybe Apple wanted to catch up with this development, because other, so everyone was expecting that, and the shareholders were pushing, so Tim Cook and all others, that you have to do something about this, because Samsung is now, so even my one of my friends told me that I bought a new Samsung because previously he was using iPhone, and he switched to Samsung because of this AI features now it has. And maybe Apple knew about this, and they wanted to integrate as soon as possible to catch up with this, let's say, rush competition, because otherwise, so they would lose their market share. Now they are both dominating the global market share with Samsung, so they didn't want to left behind in this competition. So as I think it was, so Fluency Car mentioned that, so Apple didn't want it to lose this momentum, so to use this momentum, so every researcher, we all want to catch up with all developments, otherwise we really feel left behind. But
Mhm.
actually, I think we talked about it a lot. So there are some tools in the market and a lot of copycats. So every
Yeah.
day I see new tools, but now I don't feel that, even if when I don't open my X for a couple of hours or even some days, I don't feel that I am left behind, because I know what is happening in the market, specifically AI tools for academic purposes, at least. And so if something new comes up, I immediately notice it. So if you spend some time with these tools, then you will have this feeling that I am well aware what is happening. I so we basically have, personally basically have the powerful tools. I use them, and I also try to make some tutorials on them, and we talk about them. Spend, so to my, that's just maybe small recommendation to all our view, let's say, watching audience. And so if you catch up with some of the AI tools, maybe you can check the X account, the YouTube account of Professor Nake, and also
Yeah.
mine. So you will see some tutorials. Also, a lot of people, not a lot of, but there are some good people, which is who are analyzing these AI tools for academic purposes. You can catch up with them. But maybe that was one of the concerns of Apple. So they wanted to deliver this as soon as possible, although it is not available right now, and we will have these AI features. But I think we will come to the features. Some of them really useful. I already wrote a small article and published on my Medium account. So if anyone wants to read that, so how Apple Intelligence, although it is ChatGPT, so there
Yeah.
is no such thing, Apple Intelligence.
No, there is
That's,
actually their own model, but
yeah,
it's,
there
I
is,
guess,
yeah,
a flavor,
the very
maybe you
small
can say.
LLM, yeah. But for the bulky tasks, I would say we should use this ChatGPT, integrated ChatGPT, and then, so I will come to the features of that, and I will ask your opinion about them. Some of them are really look great. And the interesting part of this event that they hold the day before yesterday on 10th of June, so in the first hour they didn't talk about AI at all, so I was disappointed. So everyone was expecting about AI, but in the first hour they didn't talk about it. But in the second hour, they started to talk about these AI features
Yeah.
separately on all apps. So that's one thing. And so you asked me about the Adobe's AI Acrobat. So they are also
Yeah.
improving it, although there are some limitations still. 120 pages limitation. You cannot just upload a whole book, or you cannot just open a whole book. Let's say it's 300, 400 book and interact with it. It's not still possible there. You can do that with ChatGPT and Claude AI, and also with Gemini. But they brought new feature, like you can select the portion of the text, and you can ask questions specifically based on that selected part of the text.
Yeah.
let's say you open your PDF, you click this AI assistant button, AI assist, if it is under 120 pages, I have to mention this again. So
Mm.
you can select the part, maybe you read it, it's complex, you don't understand it. So this is, it reminded me the feature that SciSpace already has with its co-pilot. So on SciSpace's website, I think SciSpace, maybe we should mention that it's one of the AI powered apps. So
Yeah.
they have this co-pilot. Now this co-pilot, so Adobe AI Acrobat brought this co-pilot to all PDFs. So you can select the
Yeah.
text and you can ask questions. But
But
the
you have to
best
pay
part,
for it,
as I,
right? You have to pay for it for
yes,
dollars a
you
month or
have only
whatever it is.
free five requests
Mm.
with free account, and it is nothing. And
Goes by
for
so fast.
more, yes,
Yeah.
but it is way more cheaper. It's around, at least in Germany, it's around €6. Well, I think in United States around $6 or $5, something like that
Yeah.
monthly. It's a bit friendly price, I think, student friendly price, I would say. But so we are no way affiliated with this tool. I am still testing it. I use it sometimes, not a lot, but that sounds helpful to me. So coming to the features of the, if you comment on this, if you want to say anything, please mention that. But maybe we
Yeah.
can also discuss the features that Apple Intelligence claim that they will bring. For example, the Notes app, the new calculator we have now, some much weighted one. This is calculating mass, and
Mm.
so that's basically it.
Yeah, those are nice, specifically the math one, right? Like that, those are
Yeah.
really nice, more subtle ways to use AI, which is not all just generative AI, but specifically being able to handwrite and auto update. For me, the biggest thing here is I love the Apple Notes app. I was a big Evernote person back in the day. Then I went heavy on Notion for a while. But to be honest, in my day to day, Apple Notes is really very common because I love just that I have it on my phone and computer and iPad. It just syncs seamlessly. And it's so nice, specifically the scanning feature that it has, where it just scans pages. You just
Mhm.
take a picture and it's so nice when you work in an office. But anyways, yeah, so now it's all integrated with handwriting detection and automatic formulas and stuff like that. So of course, that is something that I think is quite exciting to yeah, to be working with. It's less on the end of asking questions and getting answers and things like that. But it's more like making a workflow seamless. And I think that's where the whole personal intelligence thing was supposed to be headed, privacy concerns or not. I think the idea here is seamlessness, trying to somehow create a seamless approach for working with documents, for working with large amounts of texts, for synthesizing things. One of the things I've noticed, specifically in the academic space more recently, is that there's been a lot more pushback. The initial pushback was just like, it's ruining us. And now the pushback is like, people are using it too much. Not necessarily they're using it in a wrong way, but they're using it too much. I think specifically tools like SciSpace and Consensus, at least I've seen it in the context of SciSpace, that there was a pushback, as in you're like some angry, more angry professors saying you're taking away from the critical thinking skills that our students are supposed to be developing. Valid concerns here to say, what if everyone just scans the AI summaries? And I did one of my satire tweets that I like to post in the evenings.
Yeah.
Every once in a while, I
So
like to post a spicy take on there. But it's the thing that I said is you do everything, but actually reading the paper. You still got to read the paper, right? A lot of people I think are going into that rabbit hole of, oh yeah, it's all easy and fast and quick. And a lot of the times we are under time pressure. It's part of our environment that we live and work and thrive in. And then of course, the tricky bit here is, yeah, what if we're not taking the time to develop this ability to synthesize the text, to really go through it step by step? This morning, I posted this entire step by step guide on X and LinkedIn where I was saying, okay, if you really want to read a paper, follow these steps, read it multiple times, read it from different angles, comprehend it in different ways, take a creative approach, take an analytical approach. And if we're just hopping over it and just getting the summaries, we're missing out on that. So again, I think it's about people like us, academics in that space, to raise the awareness that don't demonize the tools, use them, to get started quicker because nobody likes sifting and sorting through stuff and the administrative tasks
Yeah.
that come with it. For those, AI assistants are perfect. They're perfect to get a hold of it. But are they replacing the critical thinking bit? Absolutely not, right? You still, once you found the papers, sure, they make finding the papers much easier. This is something that Razia on LinkedIn has also written about quite extensively, as in the finding part is really where those tools shine, like being able to get started on that literature review. But are they replacing the bit where you should be reading the paper? No, of course they're not. And that's the important bit to understand, that really it's up to you to find the right use case, to find the smooth interaction with it that allows you to have a much better output in the end, right? Because a lot of studies are coming forward in terms of outlining and writing quality. There was this whole thing that I read recently where it was like GPT-4o seems to be really good at outlining and getting like quick results. Claude 3 Opus, which most people actually don't use Opus, right? They just use the Haiku or the Sonnet versions, because I think Sonnet is the default when you're signing up
Yeah.
the Anthropic Claude agent. And so Opus is just so much better. For the people that have used it, it's just mind-blowing how detailed and good the writing is, and this whole needle in a haystack, like working with large documents, finding things, summarizing things, is way beyond the ChatGPT 4 capabilities. Interesting use cases that are coming forward there are, of course, how do we mix and match the tools for our specific requirements? And that starts with awareness, but I think it starts even earlier, because one of the things I did last week is I gave a seminar for high school kids and high school teachers as well, for how to actually use ChatGPT in the classroom, because it's obvious that they all want to use ChatGPT, or maybe they're struggling with, actually a lot of them are struggling with administration, saying, nah, we're just going to ban it. Banning it is not going to fix our school system. Students are going to use
No.
whatever they can get their hands on. And so you got to find smart ways to use it. And I think the reality that a lot of teachers are facing, myself included at the university, is our assignments, specifically the essay writing ones, they just don't work anymore. And we just have to accept that fact that you cannot use the same assessment that you did pre GPT. You now have to structure it more to have a live showcase, to have a interactive discussion, or to integrate the GPT workflow in that assignment. Because if it's integrated and you actually make them use it, just like the stuff that Ethan Mollick tweets about a lot and writes in his newsletter about how he integrates that in his classroom, I think that's a nice, different way to integrate that, at least in higher education, as a tool for getting you better results. And then always to declare it. I think the hard part right now is we're in this in between state from the early days where it was just a secret tool some students just used to cheat. And now it's no, if you get to the stage where you're acknowledging it, that everyone has access to it and should be using it, then how do you reference it in a way that is similar to scientific references? How do you make sure to document their process? And people still are struggling with that. They're struggling with that honesty of saying, I've done it, because there's this societal damnation that kind of comes with it in parts, specifically in the academic space, right? If you're an academic, you're not doing it yourself, like, why even speak up? That's risky for you. So a lot of people are not inclined to do that. I think you've told me some of that too in your work, that dealing with some in your professional field, dealing with some colleagues, it might be hard to admit that you're teaching an AI webinar,
Yeah.
because they might be like, why are you, using these tools? Which, by the way, you can get that webinar on that link up there. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
I totally agree, and I totally feel what you feel, because this AI suddenly came into our lives, and now we have so full and useful, but at the same time useful weapon in our hands. So I saw some posts where they compared this AI with electricity. So electricity, like, it's dangerous, but if you know how to handle it, it can enlighten your room. You can use all your devices. Now we use electricity everywhere. We cannot imagine our life without it. So maybe we will find a way to do that, but for now, it seems that most of us are afraid of it, and we usually afraid of the things when we don't understand it. So in the ancient eras, we were afraid of the thunders, raining, heavy
mm,
rains, or like natural disasters, and we were explaining them with non-existing gods that they are doing it because we were not understanding them. But when we understood them, we started to how to handle it, and how even in a stormy weather now we can fly in the airplane. So we found a way, and I think with AI we will also found a way to ethically and efficiently integrate into our tasks. But for example, in with my colleagues, I observed that most of them do not know which part of the tasks could be delegated to AI. For that, I think we have to understand what task we are implementing, we are doing, and which part of it, to which extent we can delegate it to the AI. So you
Mhm.
want to add something on that?
No, I really like that idea. It's understanding which tasks are high intense, critical tasks, and which tasks are more helping you do the base work for synthesizing. Again, this whole idea of treating it as an assistant, which is why that co-pilot is such a powerful metaphor that many people have adopted. It's not the pilot, it's the co-pilot. Don't put it in the driver's
Yeah.
seat, put it in there as an assistant that just helps you navigate things quickly. I think the pilot metaphor was just chosen because things are just happening so quickly. It's just like flying an airplane,
Yes.
right? But I think, yeah, at the end of the day, this is really how you should treat it, as a smart, capable of learning kind of assistant that can come to your help as you're trying to navigate these complex waters of writing prose and working with things which you might have had to hire a person for years ago. And then also being aware, I think the one of the interesting things that I took from the Kai conference that I went to in Hawaii, which was really big, it's a big event for us HCI researchers, our biggest event. All the UX and HCI people are there, and the keynote was quite interesting. The keynote talked about AI. Of course, you have to talk about AI at this conference, and it talked
Mhm.
about the economical cost of AI, which is interesting. This idea that all of these machines aren't invisible. There is a server farm somewhere that drains that power, that uses a lot of power to get the stuff done, and that somehow has to be cooled, that somehow has to be worked with. And I think at some point there was this big thing about Bitcoin kind of ruining the planet because it's computing expensive to mint coins. And now it's just look at the power that it takes to generate one image. So if you're in ChatGPT, you're doing a DALI image prompt, it takes you what, like 20 seconds to generate that. The power that it takes to do that is about an entire iPhone battery. And I think because that's invisible, a lot of people are not thinking about it. Another analogy that she had in her keynote was, if you're putting in a prompt, it's about the same as pouring an entire bottle of water to the ground. That's the kind of water that you need to cool the systems that are dealing with that. And I think it's important to have a little bit of a understanding of the capabilities of these models and also the costs that come with these massive computing capabilities that are happening in the background there. And I think that was also, and this is also something that people don't necessarily see. Sure, iPhone is a giant, powerful computer, but what people don't see, even a giant, powerful computer like iPhone or iPad is still pretty small compared to the Silicon Valley machines that are running this stuff. So when they're saying on-device computing, on-device personal stuff, it'll be okay, it'll be good. We'll actually see when it comes out with the iOS update, but there will be many tasks that the computer is not fast enough to do, and then you want to outsource that, and then you get to that decision point when it's a simple usability question. Bring in usability there. Simple usability question at that point where it's just like, I could just do these lower efficiency tasks just on my phone and everything stays private and I'm happy. Or the need could just arise as an, I want to be able to do so much more. And to do so much more,
Mhm.
you then have to connect to the private cloud compute or the data centers to actually be able to get that computing power to execute those things. And that's, I think, the tricky bit that we don't see yet, but we will start seeing when it actually rolls out on the devices and people are going to play around with it. I don't think it'll
Yeah.
be a natural thing. I think it'll be more, oh, but it'll be so much easier if I just did it in the cloud instead of on my machine. And then it's this whole trade off that happens in your head where right now you might be all in the warning camp and I would never leak my privacy. And then you're going to, well, it makes stuff easier. So it was the same with
Yes.
Google, right? Google Office, no, what is it called? Google Workspace came out and just, why would you do it in the cloud? Because it was just so much easier. It was so much smoother. Gmail just made email so much smoother. So people just naturally, okay, then I'll just share all of my email information with Google because it just makes email so much easier. Anyways, I just wanted to pop in. There was a quick question here from
Yes,
Gio saying, is it necessary to learn how to code these days if AI can do it? A really cool question. I do think coding is still important. And for those of us that are in the technical area, for me, when I work with computer science students, it's, I think, still important to learn how to code. It has never been easier to learn how to code thanks to tools like GitHub Copilot and other things. And actually, when I was talking to the high school teachers, this was one of the things that they mentioned was the earliest adoption of AI that they had is using these coding Copilot tools like GitHub Copilot that are actually fantastic. I wish I would have learned to code when these tools were around because it's like having a pair programmer there, having a very senior programmer there that can give you tips as you're coding. It was never easier and better to to get into the game of creating computer programs. So I think that's it's a wonderful ability that AI gives us. So thank you for asking that.
I definitely agree with you, and I definitely suggest if you want to learn, yeah, go and learn it because you would at least, let's say, I am a PhD researcher in
Yeah,
law. So I don't know, although I learned a little bit coding with Python language because a couple of months ago I just wanted to learn the basics and I learned it in order to understand. And when you, let's say, when you ask ChatGPT to generate a code for you, at least you would be in a better situation if you know how to code, to understand it, to understand the details of it, and to give the better prompting, for example, better than me, because I don't know the coding perfectly. I was maybe, if I ask ChatGPT, I can copy paste the blindly the output. But if you know coding, you will definitely understand. You can definitely know which part of it should be edited, which part of it should be modified, or something like that, for example, instead of just
yeah,
blindly copy pasting it. So it's in any case learning a new skill. I don't think that they will 100% disappear, but yes, maybe part of it will be delegated. But I think those who will, so the coders, the programmers, will be extinct people, I think, because less and less people will incline to learn it. And
yeah,
if you are, it will be easy to be distinguished among equals, I would say. So if you know it, if you want to learn it, so even today, if I want to learn it, I just learn it, irrespective of what is happening with AI, with other developments. And coming to that, I think one of the best skills we can develop is like having asking the better questions. So that is, I think, as a researcher, as an academic, as a student, the
yeah,
best skill you can develop is asking the, it's always not the answers. I think that's one of the famous quotes. I don't know if it's Einstein or not. So asking good questions is better than finding good answers. I think if I recall it correctly, it's exactly like that with these AI tools as well. If you know how to prompt better, you will get definitely better results. So if you
yeah,
analyze better, and with this specifically AI tool, as you mentioned, it's Copilot, and I would even say I wouldn't treat them as Copilot as the same level with me, say in this journey,
mhm,
but my assistant. So
yeah,
one tier under my capacity, but and only then I can be confident, I can be author of my work
mhm,
without any ethical implication, I would say. So in your many tutorials, I by the way, yesterday I watched one of your tutorials on consensus, and
yes,
there you mentioned rightfully that you have to know how to refine the outcome of the chat gpt, for example. So any AI tool, so any AI generated text is a danger to your work. So that's, we have to understand it. We cannot, I see at university, at my own university, and even on trains when I commute, people using chat gpt. Like I see that text coming up, generate ChatGPT generating, and I
yeah,
assume that mostly students using it. But I never recommend you. You cannot copy paste it. It is not yours. You have to add your own voice. And the best way to treat these AI tools, maybe this will change in the future. Maybe this
maybe,
conversation will be totally void what we are talking today. And maybe we will come to the era that everything is done by AI, and we're just chilling out. I don't know. But
That's what Elon thinks. That I think that's what he tweeted. Is like all of our jobs will be gone in a couple of years. Okay.
yeah, so then what is the meaning of the of all things we are doing? The thing that we are busy with, we are just attaching the meaning to what we are doing. So I read an article, I read 100 pages today, I learned new skill today, and so
Mm,
these are the meanings of our life. And imagine we delegate everything. So physical jobs will not be delegated like people
no.
doing in the warehouses. So I recently saw a report saying that only 2% of the jobs, for example, in the warehouses could be taken by AI, because physical physically demanding jobs still there, people working outside. We cannot stay at home, and we cannot, so without these people our life is stopped, basically. So that's, I think we have to, as I said earlier, we have to first understand what is our task and which part of it we can delegate to AI, and what AI can do for us, and is it even doing better. For example, in at least in my work, in my academic work, writing my dissertation, sometimes it gives me the answer that even the undergraduate student wouldn't give me. So I treat it as an assistant for brainstorming, for restructuring, for, so basically, as I said, so I open the, let's say if I want to, for example, write an article for my Medium account, I just open the Word, I dictate my all ideas, so without any full stop, without anything, without spelling, without taking care of grammar or anything, and then take this text, put into the chat GPT or Claude. I
Yeah,
mostly like using Cloud because it sounds better to me
it's
in
a bit
comparison to
nicer.
the
Yeah.
yeah. And so it polished it to me, and then again I edit it, and I edit it because I want to add my, although the original of the text is mine, and then I can post it on my Medium account as my article. So this is the one way you can use the AI. But for academic work, you cannot do that. You are responsible for your academic integrity, and that's, I
Absolutely.
think, and that it's you have one job. Let's say the memes, the famous meme says, so
Yeah.
you have to do it your own. And in the end, when I do it, I feel better. I wouldn't feel myself better if I delegate 100% to AI and let's
Hmm.
write it for me and just copy paste and submit. So that's not the way we should do it.
Yeah.
So that's my understanding, at least, of this ChatGPT and other AI tools.
Cool. I did want to. I just popped in the Q&A thing. So if anyone wants to ask us questions, we're getting to the end of this. So please feel free to pop any burning questions into the chat that's related to this webinar. If you have other questions for us, please feel free to DM
Yes.
us. And one of the things I wanted to mention is that we've been doing this as a live thing exclusively on X in the past as a Spaces thing, but now we're doing it specifically on YouTube. So check out our channels on YouTube. We're also doing the event on LinkedIn as well, which is exciting. And it's going to be pretty much the same time, Wednesdays at 11 a.m. Eastern time. Now, of course, we're in the summer, so at some point there will be vacation and stuff in between. We'll let you know. But one of the other announcements is also that this is going to be turned into a podcast, and stay tuned for us announcing the actual link to that podcast, because we're just working with turning it into a podcast from the YouTube videos in Apple and Spotify and all these other podcasting platforms. So we'll just be moving it into there. Maybe we'll come up with a cool intro or something in the future. We're just building this as we go.
Yes, we are just.
Um, but it is exciting. And Vugar and I have really liked our discussions. So we're just going to keep doing them because they're fun. And yeah, so there are some questions popping in here. Let me just pull up some of them.
Yes.
So we have one question here from Reza saying, I'm curious, what do you think are the most urgent areas researchers should focus on right now? As AI researchers, what should they focus on right now
I
to
think
be
the question is very
studying?
broad and hard to answer, actually, to
It's
be
tough.
honest.
Yeah, it's a tough
Yes.
question. But
Mm,
I do think if we're looking at the big areas here, one of the things is, of course, looking at the fidelity of the responses that you receive from the generative AI systems. Of course, people are looking at how can it be used in the right context. Of course, a lot of academics are studying how can we use it for the process of paper writing, for the process of reviewing papers, just because that's where a lot of our workload lies. It lies into producing publications, which arguable if that's always the greatest goal, but that's how it currently functions. And then the other one is, of course, in reviewing, a lot of unpaid review work, a lot of extra labor that people have to do. And so people are looking in papers and how the uptake is, but also what the opportunities are for deploying it in that context. We're actually doing a study on that right now. And so I think that's important to keep in mind, that there are these tricky bits where you want to look into how can it be useful, but then also to look into the ethical impacts of it. I think we still haven't studied enough about the bias that comes with large language models, and to identify and call out the biases that exist in these models and that will, I think, covertly find their way into our languages, into our thinking, as the web and social media is getting overpopulated with AI generated responses. I think it's super important to study what that does to culture and what that does to our perception of life itself. Broad question
Exactly.
raiser, you're going to get a broad answer. This is kind of, I
Yes.
think, where that's going. But yeah, I think that's important to think about these impacts there. Yeah.
It's like the Elon Musk's new XAI says, finding answers to the questions of the universe. So that's
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
what researchers should focus on, finding answers maybe to the questions of the universe, because what we want, we want to understand with our
Yeah.
life, with our world, with our universe, with everything. And maybe
Everything.
AI, yeah, will help with that. So thank you
Yeah.
for mentioning all our channels. So please feel free to check our channels on X, on YouTube. And so
Yes. Thank
I
you.
think, yeah, we will do it as long as our scheduling allow us to do. Please join us in our next sessions.
Yes, thank you very much, and see you again next week. I'm gonna pop that in here one more time if I can find it quick enough. I'm still new to this,
Yes, we are
but
learning.
this would be the announcement. Our next streams, it's happening Wednesdays, 11 a.m. Eastern time, whatever time zone that might be for you. What is it in Europe, Vugar, right now?
In Europe, it's already 6
So it'd
p.m.
be, yeah, it'd be 5 to 6 probably. It's
5 p.m. Starting
or
time would be 5
yeah.
p.m. in Europe.
Okay. See you there. Looking forward to chatting with you again next week. And thanks everyone for tuning in. It's been a pleasure. All right. Bye,
It's
everyone.
pleasure for me to talk to you always, Leonard. Thank you.
Bye. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.